So in the previous video, we took a look at some of the different kind of videos that we might look to create when we're looking at educational content. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at two of the main ones that came up, and that's the kind of two camera shots and then also the off-camera shots, so the interview style. So here we've got a kind of classic setup where we'd have an A cam and a B cam. The main reason that we have an A cam, B cam is primarily so that we can cut, like if we have a mistake, then we have that option of creating a really clear cut, a really easy cut so that we're masking those mistakes. And then also it can just keep the shots quite interesting. So if we're kind of cutting between two, it just means that it's not one static shot for the entire video. So A cam, B cam. And then we also have our lighting, which we're going to go into a bit more detail later. But let's start by looking top down at how the kind of setup would look. So looking top down, if we imagine that there's kind of like a semicircle around our main subject, starting from the far left or far right, depending on how you've orientated it, we have the light, which is going to be pointing at our subject. Moving around from that, we would have our kind of point of focus if someone was doing an off-camera shoot, so that might be an interviewer, or it might just be a point of focus such as an auto cue or something that that person was looking at. Moving around, you then have the A cam. So this is the main camera, which is going to be a slightly wider shot. This will be the camera that our main subject would be looking into if they were doing a two-camera piece or an instructional piece. Moving around from that, we then have the B cam, and this is that to the side camera, which is normally a little bit more cropped in and gives us that option to cut to. So taking a look at our semicircle then and just looking at things in a bit more detail. So we've got our subject here. This is the semicircle that we've just seen from above. First thing on the left-hand side is this light. Two things that you notice is that it's quite off to the side in terms of the way that Harry is positioned, and that it's quite high as well. And those two things are basically about how the light is going to fall on Harry's face. And we'll go into a bit more detail in terms of lighting in some of the later videos. So moving around, we have the position in which Harry's going to direct himself if he's looking off camera. So this would be where the interviewer would sit, or if we had some kind of auto cue or something like that. That's the position for that. Moving around to the A cam, this hopefully is framing Harry in a similar way to which we looked at the previous videos, which is a kind of mid shot of his body and not too much headroom above. And the main thing to think about when we think about the A cam is that Harry's positioning, we're just off from that. We don't want it to be so the interviewer is miles away from the A cam, because then it just looks like Harry's looking off to the distance. We want that position of his focus to be just off the side of the A cam. Move around to the B cam. The B cam we always want to be on the kind of dark side of Harry. So our light is casting on this side of Harry. On this side we might look at having something called a fill light, which we'll look at in more detail. But yeah, this B cam should be on the darker side of his face and the opposite side of the light to where his focus is. If we put the B cam that side, then we're going to end up in a position where as we cut from A to B, it's going to be changing which way Harry's looking. So yeah, we need all the cameras to be the same side of Harry's focus. In terms of that B cam, you can definitely be quite creative. You'll see that it's slightly higher than the A cam. It can be quite artistic in terms of how punched in it is, in terms of the angle. You can even be quite creative and you know, give it a bit of a tilt, those kind of things. You can definitely be playful with that. In terms of a main consideration for this B cam, the thing that we're really trying to achieve is that we're trying to get both of our subject's eyes in shot. If it was too far round from the A cam, we would end up with quite a side profile. And although again, that can be quite artistic, that might be something you decide to do, ideally you want both eyes in that B cam shot.